The Locked On Podcast Network presents The Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
LeBron James cracks 50,000 points.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
LeBron, he entered the game with 49,999 points and playoffs and regular season combined. So the passing of the 50,000 part was not exactly a surprise. But the game itself, LeBron finished with 34 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Andy, I am not convinced, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how hard LeBron had to work. 0, 1 is barely getting out of bed. 10 is what he had to do earlier in the season on a lot of nights. This felt like a 3 or a 4. It looked so effortless, and I know there was this question as to whether or not LeBron was going to quote unquote give up the ball. He looks like he's having so much fun out there, just running around doing stuff and letting Luka do all the hard stuff.
I think that's a big piece of it, is he's actually having so much fun right now and is so energized that it's looking easier as he's actually playing harder. Over the course of the time that he's on the court now, he is playing harder at all times than he was earlier in the season, something we talked about very candidly. But it's now actually easier, even though he's expending more energy, because he has so much of the specific help that he actually needs.
I'm not. Are you sure he's expending more energy? He's expending more energy defensively, but is he expending more energy overall? I don't think he is.
I think he is, because he's playing. Do I know for sure how to measure this? No, but I think over the course of an entire game, he's even more offensively energized. And it seems to me like he is playing at a higher energy level, playing harder offensively. The looks may be easier, and some of the offense in general may be easier, but I think overall, he's expending more energy. You just don't notice it as much when it's more enjoyable. He is having a really good time in ways that even when the Lakers were winning over the last few seasons, he did not seem to be having this much consistent fun. There's a fun factor that's there for him. And we've talked about this before. LeBron is the tone setter of this team. If he's having fun, everyone else is going to be having fun.
I think it is. This is not exactly a revelation. I don't think this makes me a rocket scientist to figure it out. But he really does, like you alluded to earlier, have the help that they have there's never been a point in his time with LA that the Lakers have been able to really remove the burden of being the carrier of the offense. They were going to go as far, even when AD was playing extremely well, the Lakers still needed LeBron to be the thing that glued it all together, because AD, by virtue of his position as much as anything else, just couldn't be that guy. And so that got hard. That was exhausting. That is, those same 8 eyeballs that are all looking at Luka, we're all looking at him. And, LeBron is a basketball supercomputer. If you take away, when was the last time he wasn't constantly subject to a double team, or at the very least, if not a hard double, he gets it and sees the shading, people are coming, they're pushing. There's always something where the first part of a team's defense is, well, we got to stop LeBron. When was the last time that wasn't what they were doing? Because now it's stopped. It's all focused against Luka.
Well, I don't
not all, but you
I was
understand.
going to say, I don't think it's
not
all,
but
but there's a
tremendous shift in the amount of attention and game planning and resistance a team can put up against LeBron because Luka is there.
And also specifically, too, in the areas where LeBron is. Like it was even with Anthony Davis out there, and obviously AD requires a lot of attention himself. The two of them were often in such separate places on the floor that it could be easier to kind of cheat off both of them. You know what I mean? Like they're in different enough areas, particularly when they're going high-low, that you could devote a certain amount of attention to both of them, and it felt more evenly dispersed. Luka and LeBron are often in this, they're further out. They're more in the same general area. So it becomes more difficult to, even though it's a weird thing that even though they're sometimes closer, it becomes more difficult to disperse it. Like there was a sequence where Luka fed LeBron along the arc. Like Luka hadn't even collapsed the entire defense. They were both near the 3-point line. Luka just took a couple steps in with the ball, drew two defenders. LeBron was left wide open. LeBron's man left him. And it's putting aside the whole he's LeBron thing. You're talking about a guy that's like, what is he this season? Like a 40% 3-point shooter? Like remove his name. That's not even a guy you want to leave alone at the arc anyway. Much less when he happens to be LeBron F and James. Like it's crazy.
They're so smart about spacing. They're so smart about where to move and when to move and all that kind of stuff. LeBron 39 and a little over 39% from three.
Right.
As long as they're doing, you see the amount of open shots the Lakers are able to get. And by the way, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura did not play.
Jordan Goodwin either.
Jordan Goodwin, in terms of bench depth and all that kind of stuff. But frontline players still missing in this. Two of your top 5 or 6 rotation players were not in the game for the Lakers. And again, they continue to do the thing that good teams do, which is just plug in whoever, follow a game plan, and keep rolling. It is incredibly impressive to watch what this is, and they're not anywhere. I don't think they're anywhere near like the ceiling of what they can do in terms of understanding each other and drawing up, plays, the leverage, the skills that they now have, and all that. We're still at like the opening stages of this whole thing.
You can't be at the ceiling, at least theoretically, until play enough games with everybody who matters on hand. Like they've had a handful of games without Rui, a handful of games without Austin. There've been a couple games without Luka. Like, they have not had everybody on hand for a big enough sample size to truly even know what the ceiling is.
The Bucks beat the Mavericks in Big D just a few days ago and look to finish the job at home. The Bucks played last night against the Hawks and won. They are 9.5-point favorites right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Saquon Barkley became the highest paid running back in NFL history on Tuesday.
So the Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, $20 a year annually, over $20 million a year, $36 million guaranteed. What an insane time to be an Eagles fan. A year ago today, you would have said there's never a chance Howie Roseman would ever pay a running back anything that's worth over a 1-year minimum contract. And now he makes a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But it's a really cool story. And again, it's proof that.
Brutal game. What a brutal game to watch as the Auburn Tigers fall to the Texas A&M Aggies. This whole product that was on display tonight can only be described as brutal, hard to watch. the overall flow of the game was dictated by Texas A&M, which plays a very tough to watch style of basketball. It wins, but we say this every time Buzz Williams plays Bruce Pearl, and I don't know. I mean, it's just I don't think it matters. I don't think it hurts Auburn's chances with anything. But goodness gracious, that was tough to watch.
It was a weird game to watch, just a weird feeling because it was kind of like a tweener. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't care what sport Auburn's playing or what the circumstances are. You're wanting Auburn to win every game, so you don't concede anything. But as you're watching this game, you're almost kind of relaxed and chill because you're like, there's so much, everything that Auburn wants to accomplish is right there still. And just by getting step one is winning Saturday. Okay. Sure. So the Buzz Williams narrative is true. I mean, he gives Bruce Pearl problems in the past with his style of play. A&M came in losing 4 in a row. They were very, very desperate. Auburn was not desperate. Auburn was on a high from what happened over the weekend. So you could almost feel like this was going to happen or could happen. And it's not coping, or it's just having watched basketball and the ebbs and flows of a season. You know, there's going to be one of these games. It's just you're going to have one. And in this circumstance, it was the perfect storm. I think Auburn is like 4-7 or 4-8 their last 12 against A&M. They haven't won a lot at the Reed Center. I think they've only won 2 times, 3 times. So, look, bottom line is you win Saturday and you sweep your rival. You set a record for SEC wins by a program, and you set a win for quad 1 wins in college basketball. So everything is right there. And you pretty much, I think, lock up the number 1 seed overall if you win Saturday. So do you want to lose? No. But perspective, okay? Perspective is big picture. Auburn has 3 losses all year. 3. That is amazing to do over how many games they've played and with this schedule. So you know it's going to happen. And 2 SEC losses, 1 at home, 1 on the road. In this league this year, it's almost virtually impossible to even get that kind of record.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned with the loss. I am concerned with how I think some of these leaders didn't really look like they were leading tonight. And I'm talking specifically about Janai Broome. I mean, this is a guy that, I mean, he may have, I think he lost National Player of the Year tonight. I have a hard time seeing that going into the games tonight. Cooper Flagg was the favorite. I can't imagine that'll be the case, or I can't imagine that changing moving forward. I think Janai Broome probably lost the National Player of the Year race to Cooper tonight. And that's a shame. That's absolutely a shame. You could tell they were trying to go through him early, and it's just he didn't have the touch around the basket tonight. And they made a point to make sure that he was, you know, swarmed as soon as he got it. But like, yeah, you've got to expect that. That's been the case for him all season. He's been able to adjust. That wasn't the case for him tonight. So to me, it's like, I'm not really concerned with the loss because I don't think it changes. I mean, it doesn't change seeding. It doesn't change, you know, how I think, you know, the committee and all that's going to view Auburn. But I am concerned with the lack of intensity and the lack of leadership, I think, when it comes to Janai Broome.
Yes, there are some things that in a loss, let me go back to the Player of the Year thing. Yeah, it would have been nice, but maybe in the long run, it benefits Auburn if Broome plays with a chip on his shoulder and doesn't win that award. Okay, when he gets into the tournament,
who knows?
You know, maybe he's like, you know what? And so I don't really care about that award. Really, I don't. It's pointless. Number 2.
Okay, sure.
It's nice for exposure for Auburn. It'd be nice for Broome, but I think what Auburn wants to accomplish as a team, it's a whole different subset. But yes, it'd be nice. It's like a Heisman Trophy winner thing. It is. It's good recognition for the school, for the program.
I mean, not that Bruce needs help with recruiting at this point, but it does give you another arrow in the quiver. I mean, if you don't lose another game, it doesn't matter, right? That's a much better arrow to use. But you know, they're going to need to get a center in the portal. You know, maybe it makes it a little bit easier if you do that, but sure.
And I think too, you can look at some things that are some concerns that you now really have to address, and you can really get players' attention when you lose and put the rebounding. Now, Texas A&M, we knew, is an elite rebounding team, okay?
Oh,
but
my goodness.
Should you get out rebounded by 12 or 13? Is there an effort issue with that or a technique thing? That's a problem. I don't like the fact that –
Can I read you some stats? Can I read you some stats? Do you mind? So what if I had told you Auburn is going to shoot 50% from the floor, Texas A&M is going to shoot 43% from the floor, Auburn's going to shoot 41% from three, A&M's going to shoot 36% from three, Auburn's going to shoot 87% from the free throw line, A&M is going to shoot 72%. I mean, all of these stats dramatically in Auburn's favor. Auburn had 25 rebounds. Texas A&M had 41. I mean, that's
shooting percentage matters, but I would have asked when you told me all that, okay, how many total shots did A&M get?
Shots.
And that's because of the rebounds. How many more free throws did they shoot than Auburn,
10.
even though
10 more.
Okay, so even though Auburn had a better shooting percentage and free throw percentage, if you're giving up that many rebounds and you're getting that many more shot attempts, you're going to lose. So, I could go 75% from the field if I shoot, if I'm 3 or 4, if the other team shoots that many more shots, that's what I would have. And that's where it's a formula. No matter how good you are, it'll get you beat. And it'll get you beat in the tournament. You run into a team that is an elite rebounding team like St. John's, who doesn't care what their shooting percentage is. They play filthy, get in the gutter. They can play really, really ugly and beat you because of rebounding. And all. So that's where you look at that. You go, okay. Now, all that being said, I don't like making excuses because other teams have made excuses when Auburn's beaten them. I think this game really signifies too how important Denver Jones is to this team. And it's not just his 14 points that probably would have made a difference tonight. It's how he would have defended Wade Taylor, I think, who really,
totally.
That helps.
16 points, 5 of 15 from the floor. I mean, he is not an efficient scorer, but when you get so many rebounds and you just get more shots than the other team, it adds up, like you said. So, it's weird. I've seen a lot of folks in the live chat kind of like criticize the defense, and I mean, sure, but like I think A&M took contested shots. It's just they didn't get rebounds, which does that fall under defense? I mean, I guess so. A&M's ability to get offensive rebounds tonight was brutal.
They had so many. I don't have it in front of me, but just look at the second chance points, Zach. That tells the story. That's one stat that if every other stat line is equal in a college basketball game,
you want to guess of their 83 points, you want to guess how many were second chance for A&M?
I'm going to say they were in the upper 20s.
29. Nailed it.
Dude, that is
Auburn had 11 for what that's worth.
Okay, so really in a college basketball team, the average is like 15. They got 14 more above average second chance points. I mean, these are the things, the metrics you can point to if you're Stephen Pearl and Bergamo, all those guys, and go, look, guys, this is why we got beat. This is what you cannot give up that many second chance points. So there is an absolute formula. And, we can talk about officiating and all that kind of stuff. I think, Auburn obviously in the first half was getting a favorable whistle, I felt like. Mm-hmm. In the second half, they didn't. I think Broome again and Chad Baker-Mazara were getting killed, and then the total amount of fouls in the second half. But at the end of the day, they went to the free throw line that many more times. They had so many more shot opportunities, second chance points.
Yeah.
It's going to get you beat.
The Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast.
Saquon Barkley is now the highest paid running back in NFL history. The Philadelphia Eagles agreeing to a 2-year extension with their top running back. $41.2 million in total potential earnings, $36 million guaranteed, $20+ million a year for number 26. What an incredible story. It's why I love the NFL. If you would have told me a year ago that Howie Roseman, not that he would pay a running back historic money like this, more money than a running back has ever gotten. But if you would have just said Howie Roseman was going to pay a running back any contract that wasn't a 1-year league minimum type of deal, I would have said you're crazy. 365 days later, he has made a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But that's what makes Howie Roseman so great, is that he is constantly changing his philosophies as he has presented new evidence that says this is now the way to go in the NFL. The league is zigging this way, you should zag that way. And it helped him win a championship. It was the main reason the Eagles won a Super Bowl in 2024, bringing in Saquon Barkley. And I think this is maybe the best move that Howie Roseman has ever made in his career, signing Saquon Barkley. What an amazing story for a player that was lost with a bad team, for a position at running back that has been chewed up and spit out by this league for over a decade, used after rookie contracts. Nobody, even the best of the best, can't get paid. You look at even back in the day, Le'Veon Bell holding out for an entire year because he want to get paid what he's worth, and he can't get the contract no matter what. For a team in the Eagles that never, like I said, that never liked to invest in this position, for it to result in a Super Bowl in 2024 that a running back carried you to. You beat, by the way, a dynasty looking for a three-peat that was led by a quarterback. And yes, Jalen Hurts is the reason you won the game, Super Bowl 59. But who was the main reason you won the Super Bowl from an entirety perspective? The entire season, the playoffs, the Super Bowl as a whole. It was Saquon Barkley. For somebody to do that at this position in 2024, it's amazing. But Saquon Barkley, like, I still don't believe if you're building a contender that you should consistently invest first, second round picks, top contracts in the running back position. Like, I don't think after Saquon Barkley, the Eagles should stick with this strategy either. But this is a unique story. It was unique circumstances where it was the perfect player at the perfect time. Like, this isn't, I don't like calling Saquon Barkley a running back. This isn't just any running back. This is a generational, historic offensive weapon that is already one of the best team leaders as well in Eagles history. This is a player that had the single greatest season a running back has ever had in 2024, breaking Terrell Davis's record for the most yards when you combine the regular season and the playoffs. Like, this isn't just any running back. This is one of the greatest running backs of all time. This is a running back that you could consistently rely on to rip off 20-plus yard plays, 30, 40, heck, even 60, 70-plus yard touchdowns like he was Deshaun Jackson, but he's in the backfield. Like, that is who Saquon Barkley was in 2024. This was a guy that in the fourth quarter of one-score games, you could always rely on to be the guy that makes the play to win the game. He was, if you even combine quarterbacks into this equation, into this conversation, Saquon Barkley was the best fourth quarter player in all of football this year. So yes, this was the perfect time and the perfect player to finally invest in this position. It was just the perfect player, and like I said, it was the perfect time. Like, you needed this piece to get over the hump. Right? When you look at what happened in 2023, the collapse, when you look at the 2-2 start this year, all the chaos and drama surrounding that heading into the bye week, do you think that you recover from that collapse in this year's drama without Saquon Barkley carrying you after the bye week? Do you think that his new, fresh leadership, do you think without that, the Eagles win a championship? Do you think they even make it to the playoffs or win playoff games, let alone win a championship without Saquon Barkley? I'm not so sure. It was the perfect time for where this team was from a roster perspective, but it was also the right time because when you look at the NFL, like I said, this position has been chewed up and swallowed, spit out, I should say, for a decade plus, where there was just a massive overcorrection of this position. Nobody was paying running backs. Almost nobody was even drafting them high. Like, there's only been a couple players that have been taken in the first round at running back in the last decade. You got Saquon Barkley. Like, this was such an overcorrection, such a market inefficiency that you got Saquon Barkley, one of the greatest players in NFL history, for the price of Darnell Mooney and Gabriel Davis. Like, that is unbelievable. And I think contenders are going to see not just what the Eagles did, but what the Ravens did with Derrick Henry, what the Packers did with Josh Jacobs, what the Texans did with Joe Mixon. Contenders are going to see, like, not everyone should do this, but contenders are going to see what these teams did taking advantage of a market inefficiency, getting a star player for a bargain rate because of their position. And I think they're going to try to replicate it as their final piece to win a Super Bowl. But the problem is, like Howie Roseman has said before, if you're copying a team, odds are you're too late and there's another way to do things. And the Eagles with Saquon Barkley, again, they struck at the right time. This was a good time to make this your first time going all in at the running back position. I, again, think this is the greatest move that Howie Roseman has ever made in his entire career. And that involves trading up for Carson Wentz, signing Nick Foles in free agency. Howie has made some incredible moves, drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round. Yeah, again, without Jalen Hurts, that's your quarterback. He's the main reason for this golden era of Eagles football. But Saquon Barkley was the missing piece. He was the difference between losing a Super Bowl, making the playoffs, but winning a championship. That's the difference. Saquon Barkley was the guy to put you over the top. And how awesome of a story is it to see a running back have that kind of impact on a championship team in 2024. And like I said, beat a dynasty that was led by one of the top 2 greatest quarterbacks of all time. I mean, that is a big win for running backs out there. It's one of the coolest stories that you'll see in sports. And now, to make this contract worth it, though, you're going to have to make sure Saquon Barkley stays healthy. Again, $41.2 million in total earnings, $36 million in guarantees, $20+ million a year for his annual salary. If you want to make this contract not be about what he's done for you, but what he's going to do, the Eagles need to make sure that Saquon stays healthy for the stretch run of 2025, for the stretch run of 2026. They need to add more balance, I think, in this offense. Even though the offense should still run through Saquon Barkley in 2025. Play him until the wheels come off. Now, he is not on I think he's still underpaid for the impact he has on this team, but he is not on a Gabriel Davis, Darnell Mooney-like contract anymore where he's getting paid like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. No, now he got the bag. We knew after that Super Bowl season, he was going to want a new extension. This was a matter of time. This was going to happen at some point this offseason. Now that he is paid like a star, regardless of position, now they need to make sure, though, that he stays healthy for the games that matter the most. So you're going to use him a lot next year. You should still be a run-first offense, but you can't have him take on the historic usage rate that he had in 2024. He cannot have that many carries, that many touches in 2025 as well. And this is a physical cyborg. Saquon Barkley, you build this kind of guy in a lab when it comes to his health, his athleticism, the way he takes care of his body. The usage, the punishment that he was able to take last year is unbelievable. I can't believe he made it through the entire season. But at the same time, he's an aging running back that does have an injury history. You need him for the most important moments of the season, late in December, January, potentially in February, in playoff games, the biggest games of the year. I do want them to get back to a more balanced approach in 2025. Not saying it has to be 50-50 in favor of, not saying it's got to be 70-30 in favor of the pass, but I do think it has to be more balanced than last year where the Eagles threw the football fewer than any team in the NFL. So I think that's the main thing that I think has to happen in 2025, be more balanced. But I think Saquon Barkley was worth it. It's crazy to say this about a running back getting paid historic money, considering what we know about roster building in the NFL. But again, Saquon Barkley is not just any running back. This is a generational player that carried you to a championship, and I think he can do it again. He was worth every penny of this contract.
Bucks beat the Mavericks in Big D just a few days ago and look to finish the job at home. The Bucks played last night against the Hawks and won. They are 9.5-point favorites right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Saquon Barkley became the highest paid running back in NFL history on Tuesday.
So the Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, $20 a year annually, over $20 million a year, $36 million guaranteed. What an insane time to be an Eagles fan. A year ago today, you would have said there's never a chance Howie Roseman would ever pay a running back anything that's worth over a 1-year minimum contract. And now he makes a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But it's a really cool story. And again, it's proof that
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
Davante Adams is out and ready to be scooped up. Though the reporting, and this has been the reporting for quite some time now, going back to the Super Bowl, that he would prefer to play on the West Coast. When it was reported by Ian Rappaport that he was going to be released or going to be traded, it was when he was going to be released. He reiterated, Rappaport did, that the pull of playing on the West Coast is real. And unfortunately for the Packers, and we talked about this, about why you would want to trade for him, is the 49ers could use a receiver. Now, we have reporting that Adam Schefter saying Brandon Ayuk, even after trading Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk potentially gettable in a trade. Interesting. The Chargers are a perfect Davante Adams team. Lam McConkey had a terrific rookie season, but he is really more of a slot receiver. You get a boundary, ball-winning, do-everything number one receiver to go with Ladd McConkey. That is a terrific combination for the LA Chargers. And then the Rams, they're loaded for bear now. They're going to trade Cooper Kupp. You bring in Davante Adams. He can play in the slot, knows at least a variation of this offense, has played certainly with big arm quarterbacks. That is a perfect fit too. For all of those reasons, I advocated for the Packers to make a move, give up some draft capital to get Davante Adams. Now, what is interesting about this, though, is the Jets released him, which means he can be signed right away. No new league year, none of that. And will not count against the comp pick formula for the team that acquires him. So if the Packers were to sign him and then acquire, these other pieces, the Adams part does not count against them in their comp pick formula. So if Josh Myers gets signed to a big deal, a $10 million, the John Runyon Jr. deal, they could sign a corner that's offset. Well, the Adams money wouldn't count. It's free in the compensation part of this. You still got to pay it, of course. Now, what I said when we first heard that Davante Adams wanted to be on the West Coast was, I thought it was interesting. I still think it's interesting that the reporting of that came out simultaneous to the strongest push being made from the Packers organizationally, from the players in public, from Davante Adams himself going on K Adams, Davante Adams posting his green and yellow sneakers, the cryptic connections to the Packers saying he was open to a reunion. Then Tom Silverstein reported he was open to a reunion. And then we get he likes to play on the West Coast. That felt coordinated to me. The fact that Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter had it within 24 hours of one another suggests to me that was a coordinated attempt to create a little bit of leverage. And here is the question that I would like to ask Davante himself. What do you want your legacy to be? Do you want it to be that you were a mercenary at the end of your career, that you left Jordan Love to go play with Derek Carr, your former Fresno State teammate? That ends up in disaster. Now, you got your money. You got a time in Las Vegas. You got to be closer to your family. You expand your own beautiful family. And I totally understand the reasons for that. That goes terribly wrong for reasons completely out of your control, Davante Adams. Then you follow Aaron Rodgers to New York into a irredeemable situation, it turns out. You get a coach and a GM fired. That goes horribly wrong, again, for reasons outside of your control. What do you want your legacy to be? That you made this bad decision and then another bad decision, and then at the end of your career, you tried to right that wrong by going and playing in California with Justin Herbert, chasing a ring there? Or do you want it to be that you came back to where your career started? You right the wrong of misunderstanding or misevaluating Jordan Love and say, I'm going to finish what I started in Green Bay, the team that drafted me, that believed in me. I understand that the end was not what you wanted it to be, and that you didn't get the respect and the money that you, not even you felt you deserved, though you did feel that way, that you rightfully deserved. The Packers handled that situation poorly. And I hope, for Davante's sake, the Packers are willing to come to him and say, look, we screwed this up. We should have never let you leave. Let's compensate you. You should finish your career as a Packer. Let's go win a Super Bowl. Isn't that a better ending to your career than going to be a Charger, than going to be a Ram, especially than going to be a 49er? I mean, that's like, that is anathema to being a competitor. And I'm not saying Davante Adams is scared to compete. I'm saying that move is just kind of weak. It's just kind of weak. Wouldn't you rather come back to Green Bay, be the guy that lifts this team, and then you get the credit? This is not Aaron Rodgers. Because if you guys would have won in 2020, won in 2021, you know who would have got the credit? Aaron Rodgers. But if you come back to Green Bay and you can go win a Super Bowl, you will get the credit. You will be the guy that came back and finished what he started. The prodigal son returns. You will be a conquering hero in Green Bay, a folk hero for life in Green Bay, and there is not a better place to write your name in the history books than the most historic franchise in the National Football League. This is your opportunity to cement yourself as one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time Packers, to be sure, and to lead this young group into the next phase of development for this Packers team, to be the bridge to this next great Packers run. You can do that, Davante Adams. Other people may not believe you are still that quality of player. I do, because I'm old enough to remember what happened last year when you almost single-handedly beat the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best teams in the league. I know you can still impact games that way. Where do you want to do that? What do you want it to mean? It will not mean as much anywhere else as it will in Green Bay. The Bucks beat the Mavericks in Big D just a few days ago and look to finish the job at home. The Bucks played last night against the Hawks and won. They are 9.5-point favorites right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Saquon Barkley became the highest paid running back in NFL history on Tuesday.
So the Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, 20 a year annually, over $20 million a year, $36 million guaranteed. What an insane time to be an Eagles fan. A year ago today, you would have said there's never a chance Howie Roseman would ever pay a running back anything that's worth over a 1-year minimum contract, and now he makes a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But it's a really cool story, and again, it's proof that
just ecstatic to be watching this BYU basketball team doing what it's doing. Monumental run here, 7-game win streak heading into senior night. They're going to need some extra R&R. Now, the team did stay overnight in Ames due to inclement weather in terms of trying to travel out and fly home overnight. So they'll travel back today. There's some people who actually believe that's in their best interest as athletes. The NBA is looking more into this in terms of, do you travel right after a game or do you stay overnight and sleep? And the trend seems to be more staying overnight and then traveling the next day seems to be better or more optimal for athlete recovery. So BYU's got to get these guys recovered quickly because senior day is coming. University of Utah coming to Provo for senior day. BYU played an extra 10 minutes of a hard-fought game. But the bigger point I want to talk about today is the fact that BYU has got a bunch of what I like to call unsung heroes helping them do what they have done amidst this 7-game win streak. And I want to start off with a guy that he gets his plaudits at points in games, but if you were to watch him singularly throughout a game, you'd be absolutely floored, I think, at the work rate he puts in, and that's Mawit Mag. Remember, Mawit came to BYU known as a defensive stopper, was a standout player during his time at Rutgers, was the Maryland coach called him the best single defender in college basketball, and he was glued to the bench early on this season for BYU. Then we saw in that Wyoming game, if I recall, it was Wyoming game, that Richie Saunders took that shoulder to the face, gets a concussion, a laceration of his lip, and he's out for the game. Mawit Mag steps in and finally sees some extended playing time and really reveals himself to be a really nice piece. Kevin Young said after that game, I've got to find a spot for Mawit to fit into the lineup. And Mawit, during Big 12 play, has become the consummate 3-and-D player for BYU. His offensive repertoire has never been deeper than it is right now, and his defensive chops, man, the dude just absolutely gets after it, and you can tell he relishes the opportunity of playing that stopper role. He takes on the opposing team's best player, wherever they may be on the court, and he just D's them up. He is absolutely relentless. His work rate is incredible. I'm floored he contributes as much as he does to the offensive side of the floor because he puts out so much energy on the defensive end. And Mawit, he deserves credit for what he is doing because BYU's not where they're at right now without him doing what he's doing. Another guy that I think has come into that similar type role is Trey Stewart. Remember, Trey was glued to the bench deeper than almost anybody in BYU basketball history. He could not find his way onto the court. But since entering in that West Virginia game when this 7-game win streak kicked off, his level of play has ticked up and up and up. And last night, that key defensive series for BYU at the end of the game, he and Mawit Mag were the two defensive stoppers that essentially sealed that win for BYU with that defensive, their defense in that final sequence. Trey is an unsung hero. He doesn't have a huge role. I acknowledge that, but his role, he is fulfilling it to the best of his ability. And he's seeing a little bit of an uptick in his time. Keba Keita, yes, I know his free throw shooting is a concern, but BYU doesn't win that game last night without his 9 offensive rebounds. That chase down block is going to be played in BYU football, BYU basketball highlight reels for eons to come. To chase a guy down full court and go full LeBron James in the NBA Finals on him, what an incredible play. And that should have been an easy 2 points for Iowa State. But it was indicative of the work rate that Keba Keita puts in. He is undersized relative to his height against a lot of guys he plays against in the Big 12. But his freak athleticism, his hops, his ability to go up, track the ball in the air, rebound at a prodigious rate, BYU doesn't win without him. And I think that we have overlooked what Keba brings to the table for the BYU basketball program. And there's still levels for him to get to, it feels like. Can he add maybe a back to the basket game? Can he improve on his free throw shooting where he's not a liability in late game situations? That's the hope for him. But even if that doesn't come, Keba Keita plays a key role, and he's an absolute stud to have on this roster. I will forever be happy that Chris Burgess decided to turn his back on his alma mater, the University of Utah, and come back to Provo. And along with him, Keba Keita came via the transfer portal. It has been an absolutely awesome addition to have him on this roster. Other guys to a lesser level have had to adjust their games. Dallin Hall, he's had to share the spotlight with Jaeger Demon at point guard. What did he do last night? All he did is put BYU on his back in multiple circumstances and has a season best 22-point performance. I love Dallin Hall late in games because he's fearless. He will get switched on to big men and you see him say, okay, he's licking his chops and he's like, all right, let's watch this. I will forever in my mind, remember him sticking that three in the eye of Hunter Dickinson a year ago when BYU got that monumental upset at Allen Fieldhouse over the Kansas Jayhawks. He had a couple of those in this Iowa State game. Dallin, in his heart of hearts, probably wants more of the spotlight like he had last year than what he's had. It's essentially ceding some of that spotlight and maybe a majority of it to guys like Jaeger Demon this year. But Dallin, all he's done is increase his level of play, and BYU's benefited from it. Those are just, was that 4 or 5 guys I just mentioned there? And I even have forgotten guys like Mihailo Boskovic who have had key roles at points. You can look, obviously Richie Saunders, he's not an unsung hero. He's just an outright star for BYU. Jaeger Demons had his moments. Foose put BYU on his back in both West Virginia games to help him win those. The depth and breadth of this roster for BYU is awesome. And it's in some ways similar to what BYU football had. We had a discussion on DJ and PK earlier this week, and the discussion centered on who are the star players from the BYU football program. You can point to him as like, that's the guy that led them to glory. There's not really one guy that you can point to. It's hard to pin it down. This BYU basketball team, it's probably more that Richie Saunders is that guy, but even then, Richie's had some fairly quiet games and other guys have stepped up to fill that void. That is the mark of a really good team, to use that team as what it means. You have a full roster, 11 plus guys who are contributing. And when one guy may not be at his best, I think Foose was struggling mightily against Iowa State. Well, guess what? Keba Keita, Mihailo Boskovic stepped up in the post for BYU in that win against Iowa State. The previous game, well, Foose picked it up for Mihailo and Keba and had that 20-10 performance. It's nice to see BYU getting these performances, as I said, from those unsung heroes, and they deserve their plaudits. I absolutely am enthralled with what Mawit Mag brings to the table for BYU. What a pickup he was in retrospect, because once again, they don't get to where they're at without him, but he's just one of 11 guys here who have been critical cogs in leading BYU to glory this season. It's been a really, really fun ride, and I, for one, I'm not ready for it to end anytime soon. I hope they make a run in the NCAA tournament. I'd love to see them make the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, heaven forbid, finally make it to a Final Four. That may be wishful thinking because, once again, they won with 29 turnovers last night, but I think this is a team that understands that the sum total of the parts is making up for having just one stud player. Remember the Jimmer Fredette era for BYU? Jimmer was BYU on that team, but he couldn't have done it without guys like a Jackson Emery alongside him and some of the other key pieces around him, Brandon Davies and the like. This year's team, it's not as star heavy. It doesn't have Richie Saunders going for 50 plus like Jimmer did at points. He scores 30 plus. That's great. But BYU is a better overall team cohesively, I think, just in terms of the contributions across the roster, how balanced it is, than maybe even that Jimmer Fredette team. And I'm not trying to denigrate the legacy of Jimmer because that was one of a kind to watch him do what he did back in 2009, 2010, that era. But it's been incredible to watch this rise of this BYU basketball team. And it's due in no small part to the vast contributions from across that roster. And Kevin Young, he deserves to take a bit of that credit as well for finding the right mix of roles for guys and understanding there's times to let guys go and there's other times to pull that leash in a little bit tighter and maybe tighten that rotation at points in games. It's never an exact science, but Kevin Young, he has proven to have a really, really deft touch to helping BYU do what they have done so far this year.
The Bucks beat the Mavericks in Big D just a few days ago and look to finish the job at home. The Bucks played last night against the Hawks and won. They are 9.5-point favorites right now. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Saquon Barkley became the highest paid running back in NFL history on Tuesday.
So the Philadelphia Eagles just made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, agreeing to a 2-year contract extension worth over $41 million, $20 a year annually, over $20 million a year, $36 million guaranteed. What an insane time to be an Eagles fan. A year ago today, you would have said there's never a chance Howie Roseman would ever pay a running back anything that's worth over a 1-year minimum contract, and now he makes a running back the highest paid player at his position ever. But it's a really cool story, and again, it's proof that
the Vikings might still be open to just a true blue extension. What would that look like?
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast.
It has been an interesting couple of weeks on Sam Darnold Watch. What are the Vikings going to do with the belle of the ball in free agency? They've got the guy that figures to make the most of the whole class by virtue of his position and playing pretty well at it this year. Lots of talk about a tag and trade. Why didn't they do that? If you're curious, I talked about that at length on yesterday's episode, as well as a whole bunch of other things in a mailbag. So go listen to that. But long story short, logistically, it wasn't as feasible as you think to pull it off. Actually tagging and trading him doesn't just mean you click 2 buttons like you're in Madden franchise mode. You need a lot of different people to cooperate with you, and they don't necessarily have a reason to, and you're also on a very tight timeline. So not very easy. Definitely not. Maybe you would even argue not doable. So they didn't want to risk it. I personally think that it would have been very unwise to go for. So I'm pretty happy to see that they showed restraint there. A lot of you disagree. It is what it is. It's over. But after the tag deadline passed, the reporting from both local and national beats has shifted. And everyone is using very vague language. They're open to working something out. Both sides are maybe going to come to a deal. Here is what I understand, and I'm kind of pulling nuggets from, combine reports, from postseason reports, from, recent reports, stuff like Access Vikings and the Star Tribune, NFL Network stuff, the more mainstream ways of getting Vikings information over a long time. So if you're missing, if you've been missing stuff and you want to catch up, here's what I understand the situation to be. Sam Darnold likes it in Minnesota, and he likes it enough in Minnesota to be very much interested in staying if the price is right, if a deal gets done. But it's a business, and here's the thing about where Sam Darnold is at. Think about his career. He has been a bust. He has been a reclamation project. He has been paid like a backup or a rookie. He has not really made big money in the NFL, at least not by NFL standards. But here he is with a chance to do that. He's hitting free agency, coming off a 14-win season, looking to make market quarterback money. What is market quarterback money? It seems like part of the reason the Vikings did not want to tag him was because $41 million is too much for Sam Darnold, not just for the Vikings, but for teams potentially trading for him. That is a point that Ben Gessling has brought up, and it's a point that Ian Rappaport brought up. So there's a local and a national angle on it, both kind of saying the same thing. That the problem with Sam Darnold's market wasn't that teams aren't interested in Sam Darnold. They very much are. And a lot of people are like, why don't you think teams would want to trade for Sam Darnold? Teams want to acquire Sam Darnold, but they want to have a say in how much he's making. And if he's starting at 41 mil, that would be what the tag is. Teams are way less interested in that, and the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze. So that kind of tells us what a Sam Darnold extension would look like. He would be making less than that, significantly less enough that it makes the whole tag and trade bonanza thing not even worth engaging in. So to me, that tells me that Sam Darnold's maybe going to make more like 30 mil a year. Call it the Baker Mayfield deal. The Baker Mayfield deal 2 years later looks a lot worse. Not the way his contract has scaled. I don't have anything to say about that. But rather, if you sign a $30 million a year deal now, it looks worse than a $30 million a year deal looked if you signed it back in 2022 or whenever Baker Mayfield did, because the cap has exploded so much, 30 mil doesn't go quite as far. All that is to say, Darnold might be in more of a Geno Smith contract territory. If you adjust those contracts for the current cap environment, that is to say, look at the percentage of cap in the year they signed and then see what that percentage of cap would be this year. If you want to say Sam Darnold's going to make about Geno Smith money, that's $30 million now. If you want to say he's going to make about Baker Mayfield money, that would be like $36 million now. So somewhere in there, it would be my guess, somewhere between 30 and 36, evidenced by the fact that 41 was too steep for everybody. And we know this to be the case. We know that the Vikings put out a feeler via NFL Network and Ian Rappaport saying, hey, look, they've got this potential tag and trade thing. You know, we'll see what teams come calling, which was them indirectly through the media begging for teams to call them. And whatever they learned in those calls led them to believe that it wasn't going to be worth it. And I think one of the only explanations that makes sense is that teams didn't want him on that deal. So it's got to be significantly less than that. And if you look at equivalents recently, Geno, Baker Mayfield, you know, guys that started out as not as dissatisfying, you know, franchise quarterbacks from their rookie deals who like went through a little bit of time with other teams, did the journeyman thing, and then emerged maybe a better starter. If Sam Darnold's the next one of those, he's going to make somewhere between 30 and 36 million. Here's the rub. I don't know what the Vikings are going to offer him, because what the Vikings need in him is so different than what other teams in free agency need. And here is the other rub. Sam Darnold's agent works for CAA. It's like the biggest agency in sports. So whether it's like tampering or not, that agent knows what quarterbacks are going to be making nowadays. And he knows what teams are going to be willing to offer to Sam Darnold. My guess is there is an offer on the table for Sam Darnold from the Minnesota Vikings. My other guess is that offer is not very good. The Vikings have done this with other players that they would love to keep. Oh my God, we love that guy. We would love to keep him in the building, but the price has got to be right. And then they go, but it's a business, right? Kirk Cousins was one of these. Daniil Hunter was one of these. They had an offer on the table for those guys, but it was lowball. And it was, this is your floor. Go forth and prosper in free agency. If nobody does better than this, you're welcome to come back and take it. And most of the time when you do that, somebody's going to do better. And if you didn't think someone was going to do better, you would sign that right then and there. So that's my guess. And if you think about it, the Vikings having some kind of, call it like 25 mil, right? Like a little bit below what you maybe are going to get for free agency. But if you think about Sam Darnold's future on the Vikings, if he does sign, say, a $25 million deal, there is a real world where he goes into training camp, loses the job to J.J. McCarthy, and becomes a $25 million backup. That feels a little risky, but it feels like way less than what Sam Darnold actually deserves on the market. That's what I've been saying this whole time. That it's ships passing in the night. It's two people in different situations. It's not you, it's me. We're better off as friends. We should probably just have fun. We're going in different directions in life. That's where it feels like it's headed. If you think about where he is for the New York Giants, he's competing with Drew Lock. Is he even still a Giant? Like, he has that job. That he is the starter, and you pay your starter $30 to $35 million. Okay, that feels fine. You pay your backup $30 to $35 million, or you pay a guy $30 million and then tell him he still has to win the job. It feels like you're not being very efficient with your resources. And that's not a far-fetched idea. In training camp before J.J. McCarthy got hurt, we were kind of told it was Sam Darnold's job. And then it started getting hard. It started getting a little bit tougher for that assumption to be made. And if you ask Kevin Seifert or Ben Gessling or Andrew Kramer, any of the people who were at camp every single day, they were like, yeah, it kind of was going to be a last minute decision. It actually was. Like, J.J. McCarthy was starting to take that job from Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold was playing well. So well, in fact, that it went all the way into the season. We saw what he did. He was playing that well in camp too, and J.J. McCarthy was making a run at it. So another camp battle, I wouldn't guarantee that Sam Darnold wins that job. And if Sam Darnold is here, only if he is here on a $41 million franchise tag type amount, would I say, okay, yeah, he's going to be the starter. But if he signs for 25 mil, there's a chance you got a $25 million backup. And that's probably the upper limit of what you would ever want to do. The Vikings, I think, are much more keen to give somebody like Daniel Jones $10 million. Then you maybe got a $10 million backup, which still feels a little bloated. But, competition, right? There's a chance he could be a starter, and that's what you're paying for. And you move on. You let Sam Darnold go get a comp pick. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about. If Sam Darnold does walk, the comp pick formula is giving a lot of people pause. And the difference, it was like a big point that people made when they were arguing to tag and trade. You definitely get a pick and you get it right now. Who's to say they're even going to get a pick next year? And if they do, they have to wait a year. What's the value like?